This is the first part of the lecture on tables for the Introduction to GIS course at St. Charles Community College. So today we're going to talk about just the basics of tables. I'm going to do a few demonstrations of how they work and how we need to manipulate them. So I've just loaded a couple of pieces of data into an empty project. I've got United States cities and United States states, you can see clearly. The first thing we're going to do is work on just opening up the table. So whichever table you're interested in your table of contents, you just select it, and then as usual you right click and down to Open Attribute Table and select that. You then get access to the database. You can see all of the information that we have for that particular table, for that particular feature class. You can scroll through, and I would encourage you to do that. A couple of things to pay attention to right off the bat. We will use a few words throughout the semester, and in fact probably already have. One is going to be what's referred to as a field or a field name. The one I've highlighted here, the field name is called shape. These are the columns. Fields are columns. Here's one that identifies the name of the city, what type or class of city it is, what state it's in, those sorts of things. So the fields are what are referred to as columns. A record is the opposite. A record is an individual item, in this case a city, and they tend to be the horizontal information that we have. Now I've just got one table open here. You can see down here US cities, but I can also open both tables at the same time. For example, if I right click on the United States and open the attribute table, I can, just like any other database, so if you're familiar with Excel or any other type of thing where you can see multiple databases at a time, you have tabs down at the bottom where you can toggle back and forth. Sometimes, however, it's actually useful to be able to see more than one at a time. There's a relatively small box up here in the top left corner of the table box, not the regular program, but right here under table. If you pull this down, you get the option to arrange your tables. You can do that either horizontally or vertically. So either they are on top of each other this way. Let me see if I can expand it here a little bit. So this here is my cities table, and this one here is my states table. Or you can do it the opposite and have them next to each other. Oops. So you could go to arrange table and then have them vertically, and then they would be next to each other this way. So either way, whatever is most useful to you. Whichever way you view it, we do need to recognize the concept of what's referred to as a one-to-one relationship. So every piece of data, every record that we have in our table is represented by a single entity in our map. So for example, within my United States table, if I were to select, for example, the state of Wyoming, here, you can see that it is automatically selected within my view. Not only has it turned blue in the table, but that automatically selects it or turns it blue in the map. Remember, if you've selected something and you don't want it selected, you need to clear your selected features. And same for the cities, right? If I pick a particular city here, you can see that it is automatically highlighted within the map itself. So we do need to keep those things in mind. And again, don't forget to clear your selected features. We also have the ability to do some manipulation within the table. One thing that's relatively handy is to be able to alphabetize. So what I've done is I've gone to the field name. Well, in this case, the field name is name, so that's confusing, or maybe class or state. If you select where the field name is itself, this little gray section, and right click, you can sort that information, right? You can alphabetize it, either in this case A to Z or Z to A. You can also do it numerically, 1 to 10, 10 to 1, that sort of thing. So that's a useful thing to be able to do. Another important detail of the table is what's listed down here. So for example, if I were to select several records, I'm just clicking in this gray box right here, holding my mouse button down and moving it down just to randomly select a few. You can see they're selected over here in Virginia. It's nice that down here it tells you, first of all, how many records there are in the entire database, which is very useful, but also tells you how many have been selected. This icon here represents that you can see all of the data, not only what's selected, but also what is unselected, or you can switch the other icon and get rid of what's not selected. It's not gone, you just click back and it appears back, but sometimes it's useful just to narrow what you're looking at so you can see it fairly quickly. You can also move fields relatively easily if you just click onto the field and drag it. Can you see this red line? It's a little bit light, I realize, but it's kind of bouncing back and forth here. That will show you where you're about to move your highlighted. You just click on the field name and then move your cursor and it will move a field. Sometimes you want to see two fields next to each other and that makes it a little bit easier. We also have a few tricks that we're going to do in terms of getting our tables ordered in a way that's useful. So for example, a very easy one is what's referred to as statistics. This is just a very simple counting. So for example, maybe you are interested in finding out, this happens to be cities, maybe you're interested in finding out how many people between the ages of 18 and 21 there are listed in all of the cities in this database. The calculation can be very, very simple. You just highlight the field that you're interested in, excuse me, right click down to statistics. You've got the little summation, the mathematical summation sign here. Select it, wait for it to count, and it does it for you. It gives you the count, it adds them, tells you what the minimum is, what the maximum is, what the sum, right? Just some very, very basic statistics. It even gives you a chart if you wish. There's a way to put that into your final map. So that's one easy way to do it. Another slightly more complicated, although very useful idea within tables is what's referred to as a summary. So in this particular instance, for example, we may have city information. So here's Madison, Wisconsin. It's the city information. I've got the amount of population in the year 2000 here, in the year 2007. I've got some demographic data because this is from the census, so we have all of this demographic data that's listed for that particular city. But maybe I want to find out this type of information for the entire state of Wisconsin. So instead of just an individual city, I want it to group all of the cities within the state and add them individually by state. That's what the summary tables will do. So in order to do this, the first thing we have to decide is which field we want to start with. The way that you need to think about the logic is literally by asking yourself a verbal question. I want the computer to group states together and then add a particular field. So the first name that you come to there is states. I want the computer to group states together. So that's the first action that we will look at. So we'll start with our states column. This is where we start. To begin the process, we get to our states column and we right-click down to summarize. Once we open up that dialog box, we need to find which field it is that we're interested in combining. So remember, we decided that we wanted the computer to group all of the cities that are within the same state and then sum the group of 18 to 20-year-olds. So you can specify whether you want one or all of these things. We'll just go ahead and select the sum of them, but you can pick all if you like. The next thing we need to do is navigate to a safe place. We will be making a new a new file. So it has to be located in a safe place. Now, GIS, as you have found, I think, in other circumstances, is a little bit particular about where files are stored, and this is one of those cases. Summarized tables need to be inside a PGD, inside a personal geodatabase. We will learn a little more specifically about how to create a PGD a little bit later in this lecture. So for the moment, just remember that they do need to be inside these cans. So at this point, I need to give my file a name. I'm just going to refer to it as clearly as I can, Call this one 1821 Summarize and save it. Now, once I have everything that I need to check in my dialog box, I select OK. Once it has calculated the results, it will ask if I want to add the table to my map, and I say yes. I'm going to go ahead and close this table just to get it out of the way. So over here in my table of contents, I now see that I have my table which I can open. Now note the difference between a feature class and a table. It has a different icon. It's also listed slightly differently. That's because this table has no geography. It cannot be mapped. It's just a table. So if I open it up, we can see that it has my state, Alabama, Arkansas, Arizona, and so on. It tells me how many records it found for each state. So in this case, that means how many cities there were listed for each state. And then it has a column of summarizing that particular field which we asked for, that 18 to 21-year-old field. So these can be very useful. They can very quickly make some data for you that you can use in different circumstances. We will finish up this lecture in the following video. So this concludes the first portion of the tables lecture.